Hey everyone, if you haven't seen the news yet, Point of Rental has just released its first AI feature, which supercharges your product descriptions to your customer facing website. It started in Essentials and it'll be rolled out to Elite soon. Today I'm going to talk with a couple of people behind Point of Rental's AI initiatives, Matt Gaffin, our Director of Development, and Collin Pike, our Head of Cloud Engineering. Welcome guys.
Thanks.
Hello, hello.
All right, let's first talk about our Supercharger since that's the feature that's out there in the wild. Um, we know that Supercharger helps people generate good product descriptions. Let's take us back behind the scenes a little bit. So first of all, like what inspired this? Why is this our first AI feature for an RMS?
Yeah, I
Well,
think
we want
I
to.
think I think Matt kind of can take the credit for a little bit of coming up with the idea. We had a hackathon. I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago or so. At 2 years now, and Gavin and his team had put something together to work on a supercharger that just kind of stored item details and used generative AI to help build out descriptions and information around product details. The the caveat was that my team was also working on the same thing, and we didn't know that one another were working on the same thing until I think about halfway through the hackathon, and we started talking about it, and we kind of merged together the ideas, and that's what people are getting released to now.
Let's be honest, Colin was just like, hey, we can do this better and wanted to steal the thunder. So it's okay, though, because we landed in a great place. But
All right, good. I'm not crazy. I did think that this was a hackathon thing. I'm glad you guys mentioned that, and I'm glad it started there. So you mentioned that you guys were working on it separately, and it's been a while. So what are some of the challenges that we ran into as far as like being able to implement this?
well, I think so. I'll start with that. So back 3 years ago, right, when we first had the idea, right, generative AI was not in a great place. It was slow, it was expensive, and it didn't have access to be able to search the web. And so we were just kind of like, hey, can it can it just guess what the item is based on what's been described in our data? And the answer was actually surprisingly yes. It did a pretty doggone good job of guessing it, and then did a great job writing a description. That was a struggle, right? We were in the beginning; it was a little bit iffy. We actually took it a step further and said, "Hey, maybe we can, bake in all the specs and the details and all this stuff." But it was, prone to what we call hallucinations, so we ultimately decided not to go that far. But
Yeah, this whole revolution of Gen AI came about when ChatGPT was really the first friendly, user friendly, kind of high market AI tool that people started using a couple of years ago, and it's just iteratively got a lot better. Prior to that, though, like, we were doing machine learning and linear regression statistics and things like that to help maximize our customers' ability to execute decisions based upon our data. But the revolution of Gen AI definitely has taken that to a new level. And so, like Matt's talking about, we'd played around with using some computations and some theories around word vectorization and using these things called Markov chains and all of these things to help try and do what's called suggestive items, where we recommend specific items based upon people's carts, like consumers' carts. Um, and that was all done before there was Chat GPT. There was a big effort put underway for that used a lot of math and a lot of really smart people to try and get something like that going. But the advent of Gen AI with Cursor and Claude and Sonnet and Chat GPT, like, it's really just taken it to the next level. And so we've run into a lot of kind of the early stages of AI, that the problems that any kind of initial go to market is going to have. But we're slowly getting better. The data is getting better. The ability for us to leverage it for our customers is getting better. And so that's what people are getting with this product details superchargers. They're getting the ability to enhance their product, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, you mentioned hallucinations early on. How have we helped um, it hallucinate less? I guess because I'm sure that customers don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to have false information on their sites.
Yeah, so hallucinations are a computer's innate um, misinformation that it might give out to people. And so, with things like ChatGPT, a lot of people that are watching this probably have used it. When you ask a question, the models and algorithms behind the scene, like, they want to be right. And so, because they want to be right, they're using information and data gleaned from all kinds of resources like Reddit, different web pages that it's gleaned from. And some of that information, as we've all know, is not always accurate. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that it's accurate. And so, we've done a lot to try and ensure the accuracy of the data that we're providing with this supercharger. And so, we do what's called text validation, we do verification, regressions to be able to look over the data that we get back from the generative AI, and we segment that information up and we validate it against known information that we can get from comparative data against other customer systems or from site data that we might be able to get from manufacturers. So, for example, we might take Bobcat or Kubota information from their website and validate against that our descriptions and our information that we're grabbing from our generative AI engines are actually valid information, and then that's what's produced forward to the customer.
Okay, now I understand a little bit more of, like, why we didn't just like bring this to market earlier and just like, yeah, it's close enough. Just go ahead and throw whatever on your website. What should be
Well, I mean, and don't get us wrong. I mean, there was an opportunity, like, we could have done that, but because at the end of the day, you're still responsible, as we all know, you're still responsible for reviewing what generative AI is putting out, right? And so what we had was simply generating information that the user would then glance at and say, hey, does this actually look good? Am I willing to put this on my website? And I think that's an important thing to remember because, we've heard horror stories of people in law professions just, generate this, legal argument for me. And then they read it verbatim and it has all this, ridiculous stuff that, gets them in trouble. At the end of the day, you're very responsible for what it puts out, right? You can't, we're not at a place where we trust you 100%.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we spent a little time taking it um, more to a more specific, more validated set of things, because I know sometimes definitely see a bunch of copy that's clearly just taken straight from AI, and zero effort is put into fact check it. And when you actually do know a little bit about what it's talking about, then you're like, all right, I mean, good confidence, bad information.
Right.
All right, is there anything else that people should keep in mind while using Supercharger besides, just still make sure that you are verifying the information?
I think in these beginning stages, I want to encourage people to use it. So this is definitely a early beta of what's to come from Pointer Rental and all of the AI and machine learning features that we have planned in our roadmap. And we had our international conference last year, and we had a AI focus group where we had leaders from the industry, both owners of rental companies. We had high level employees from rental companies, field staff from rental companies come into a focus session. We talked about what could Pointer Rental provide to you within the rental management systems to help you better your business using AI or machine learning or somehow using data. And what we gathered from them is that back office decision making is really the key place where people are wanting to see AI help them out, help them to make decisions. But another big area that people were really wanting AI was in this sort of um, product description enhancement so that they can distribute their data on their websites. And that data is consumable by their consumer that can easily find information. If I'm trying to rent a small skid steer, I want to be able to find the closest rental store, the easiest place to go rent it. And our rental store owners were giving us the feedback that, hey, it's hard for them to find my website, it's hard for them to find the actual item that they're trying to rent. And so today, what we're releasing is a massive improvement over the status quo of what our customers were doing day to day. They were manually having to enter this information, and this is massively impacting it. But in order for it to continue to improve, people are going to have to use it because it's naturally going to learn, retrain itself, and get better the next time that it's used. And so I just highly encourage people use it, validate it, give us info, provide us feedback. I'm excited to where the data is going to be able to bring us to next.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Use it. That's it.
All right, perfect. As you kind of mentioned, this is not even close to it as far as like where we're going with artificial intelligence at point of rental. Um, are either of you all able to talk about what's up next, regardless of platform? Like I don't care what RMS it's in. Um, we're obviously getting bombarded as a society with all these things that AI is supposed to solve for us. So what's next at point of rental?
So I think, one of the, when we talk about using it, right, that gives us a chance to then observe how it's being used and what the feedback is. And that's a core part of how we see AI playing into our strategy here, right? We want to see what you guys are doing with this so that we can then say, hey, we can make this part better. We can automate this part for you. That's we've got a laundry list of kind of call them tasks, call them jobs that are being done out there by you guys. And we're evaluating each one of them. Hey, could we do something here that might make things easier? For instance, right? We have people who do inspections on equipment. Right now, when you track a fuel meter reading, you might go in there and look at the fuel gauge and say, that's about at 3/4. And you might be typing 3/4 in there, selecting 3/4. And then you also probably want to take a picture of it to verify it. What if you just used AI to take the picture and the AI is able to say, that's at 3/4, I'll put the data in there. So then you've now taken a, slightly long workflow and turned it into something shorter. That's an example of the stuff we're trying to, wrap our heads around right now. And there's a lot.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot. Point of rental is really good at empowering engineers to be able to come up with really creative, impactful concepts. Um, Matt and I are specifically working on some of the rental analytics and rental insights type of information that we're going to be able to provide to customers. And so we're launching this massive effort at Point of Rental to try and leverage things like AI and machine learning and being able to provide that type of information to our customers so that they can leverage their data in more effective ways. From purchasing to pricing to sell offs to maintenance, predictability is going to be a really big thing in the coming years. And so being able to provide insights of and predictions to customers is what our big efforts are. So this is definitely just the beginning for Pointer Rentals kind of intro into AI. We've got a lot of really cool uh, projects that are underway at Pointer Rental that we'll announce some of them at international conference. Some others will trickle out throughout the year, but it's really going to cement that Pointer Rental is here to help rental store owners be successful and rental store employees be successful. And in order to do that, we have to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology, and this is one of those areas that we really are focusing on.
Awesome. So it sounds like we're taking both user feedback and our conversations with people at our events and that data that's being provided within the system to kind of guide like, hey, this is where we can make the most difference.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
Perfect. All right, then we're all on the same page here. uh Colin, you're in charge of the cloud, I like to say. um what role does cloud infrastructure play in supporting or enhancing these AI features now and in the future?
Yeah, so the big areas of AI and any sort of machine learning or using people's data. Where are you going to run this stuff, and how are you going to secure it? And so, cloud and cybersecurity definitely play a massive role. And, Point of Rental prides itself on the compliance that we hold with various different data privacy laws. Um, we are really geared towards making sure that we keep this data secure. And a big portion of that is how do we secure our cloud environments that run the training, create the models, store the models, do predictions against it, references. All of that stuff takes big data from customers. It's very important that we keep that stuff secure. And so I think the cloud plays a pivotal role in our future. We're a cloud first company. We are developing to be easy to use and at your fingertips. One of Matt's teams is the mobile team. A lot of their infrastructure all runs in our cloud providers, and so the way that we grab data, the way that we train models, the way that we produce the insights, all of that stuff lives in our cloud. And so being able to secure that and being able to run that stuff at scale plays a really key role in our future for success.
Awesome. You mentioned scale. That brings me to the next question, which is, what are we doing to make sure that these features are scalable as more businesses adopt them and as we add more AI functionality?
I think as as more people are using this, right, that there are breakpoints at which we will realize, hey, we have to make sure that what we did yesterday is still the right thing that we do tomorrow. And right, part of that is just us staying very current with the trends, right? There are things are changing at such a breakneck speed right now that what we know today is no longer true tomorrow. And this has been this has felt like our reality for the last 10 years. Man, it really feels like the reality now. And so one of the things we're doing is we're staying on top of, all the new trends that are coming out to make sure that we're ahead of that curve. Because, somebody releases a new model that brings the pricing down, that plays into scale, you know, which also, as that pricing comes down, we are now able to do more things because we can spend more money. Well, the same money, do more things with the same amount of money, right? At the end of the day, scale is it's a very diverse thing, and a lot of it just comes down to us staying ahead of the trend. And like Collin said, making sure that I think that we're not only that we're secure, in our infrastructure, but also that we're not putting our you guys in a bad place either, right? It's very easy to get complacent with the way we use things, and so I think scaling the user interactions and the user interface in a way that optimizes the amount that you can just say yes, make it so, and brings balance, to hey, make it right.
Right. I know I've talked with both of you before, and I'm a bit more AI hesitant than most people. So like when I see these things going around on like LinkedIn where it's like create an image of me based on our interactions, I'm like, you should be worried if it's generating a perfect image of you because that means you're probably telling it too much information. I think. Um,
Yeah, it's one of those areas that 10 years ago when you look at cloud environments and you look at cloud software, that was a big hesitancy. Going to the cloud, putting your data in someone else's server, that was something people were really slow to get on board with. And now I would say that most of our customers that we acquire now are going with our cloud offerings. And so there's been this shift in the market where it takes time to kind of adopt new technology and adapt to it. But what I will say is with Gen AI and with ChatGPT and with the just the ease at which people can interact with it, that adoption has really picked up a lot faster over the last year or so. And so when I look back over the last 10 years or so, cloud adoption took a few years before people started becoming really comfortable with it. And with Gen AI, people are becoming, if anything, overly comfortable with its use. And so, point of rental, we're taking customer privacy, customer data very, very seriously. And so, training off of anonymized data, sanitized data, sticking with all of the compliance for U.S. data privacy, all of that stuff is something that we're really, really, if anything, overdoing to make sure that the data that we use, which is gleaned from around the world from rental insights, is used in a safe and secure manner.
all right, good. You didn't even let me get to my question before you're all ready to let me know how we're storing it responsibly and securely. So I appreciate that. Um, let's say there's someone out there who doesn't want to use AI at all. They're totally happy with their software the way it is. They want total control. They're even less excited about AI than I can be at my most curmudgeonly. What options do they have?
And so I encourage people first and foremost use the tools that we've been given, and we've been given this awesome environment of using things that we didn't have 10 years ago. And I look at Gen AI like ChatGPT or like Claude, and I look at it in the same light that I think about accountants. 50 years ago, they weren't using Excel, right? They were all using these books that had lines on it. Matt's father is an accountant, And back when he started, they used these little green and white booklets that they put their numbers on, and they did the math themselves. When Excel came out, it the market was just, there was so much hype around, this is going to replace accountants' jobs. This is going to be so insecure. You're putting this data on a computer. Like, what happens? And what we found was that the accountants that didn't adopt it were the ones that were left behind. And every accountant now, if you know any accountants, they all use Excel. We as much as I wish they would use Google Sheets, they still use Excel. Um, but my point in that is that I encourage people to use AI, especially through the tools and the mechanisms that we're producing in the rental management solutions. We are taking into account the sanitization and the validation of that information. And so, if you're not going to go out and experiment with yourself, Point of Rental is going to provide options and avenues for you to leverage AI and machine learning. And so, I would encourage use those things. And if anything, they're going to improve the state you're in today, and they're going to simply make you a better, more efficient rental store.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a good segue, into another topic or the same thing, but when you think about, the fear, I think if you really think about what a lot of people are really afraid of, and I've talked to some. My wife was one of them. She was, we we were at odds for a hot minute there, and I was like, you don't have to give it your social security number. You don't have to give it your deepest, darkest secrets. Maybe the thing you ask it is just simply say, hey, got a birthday party coming up for my 4-year-old. I want it to be themed around these little rabbits. Help me come up with some game ideas. And that's how it started with her. And she was just blown away. She didn't have to divulge, you know, personal, deep information. Just ask it questions, right? So I think anybody that is, more conscious of what they're sharing, great. Limit what you share. But, that doesn't mean that you can't ask it questions, right? You can still use it without it using you.
Yeah, I would. I'd have to go look at the code. I don't know if we actually validate against if somebody puts in their social security number, but I would encourage to not put in private data. Makes and models and hours for your Kubota or your Bobcat or Caterpillar. It's probably fine, but yeah, I would agree. Any sort of personal private data,
Yeah.
we definitely steer against putting that stuff into any of our training models. So, I would encourage people, if you use it outside of point of rental, also do not do.
Yeah, that would also be very confusing for the product details if you're including a bunch of personal information. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up with a question for both of you. Colin, I'm going to start with you. You can give our customers one piece of advice to get the most out of our AI features. What would you tell
I would say, connect your data. Like, connect your data early and often. With those tools and systems that we're providing for our customers, we're already, we have access to the insights that we've gleaned from decades of being in the rental industry. To get the most out of AI, you have to give it data. So whether it's connecting your CRM, if you're using something like Salesforce, or connecting things like point of rental data, connecting your accounting information, use your data. It is a scary place to be in, but rest assured, point of rental has a whole team of security engineers, cloud engineers, software engineers that are like, that's their job, and we do our job really, really well. And I'm very proud that we are trying to secure this stuff as much as we are trying to. We're always prepared for unknown situations. So I would say, put your data into it, and use the insights that it gives you. And so we're trying to create easy to use features that customers can readily have access to. And so I would just encourage you to, like we started talking about at the beginning, um, use the tools that we give you, and use this software. And our hope is that it, if anything, makes a more efficient rental operation.
Yeah, and you guys are cloud engineers, because like I know that engineers, it's like you build not only for the purpose, but you also have like fail safes in like and backup systems to make sure nothing goes too wrong.
Yeah, you always, it's a layered approach. We always prepare for the worst. We have a lot of we go to great strides to try and make sure that we stay ahead of the game in things like AI, but we're also trying to stay ahead of the game in cloud security and infrastructure. And so, um, yeah, we are taking care of that, and so customers can rest assured that we take this. This is in our mind, like our customers. I think Wayne always talks about the point of rental is a big family. We treat our customers like it's our data. We treat it like it's our family, and I don't want my data out there. I don't want it being unsecured, and I'm making sure that the um, customers feel the same way.
Yeah, I would say that, just to echo that, this team they're top notch pain in the butts, and that goes, internally, right? If anything, I would say they err on the side of like, come on, man, cut me some slack here, No, but it's great, we see that, internally as well, right? There are so many protective layers that we even have internally, and I think that's been a big shift for us, in the last 10 years, as that whole security's become a huge buzzword. And so we experience it, a ton.
Awesome. Matt, did you have any piece of advice to give customers to get the most out of AI features?
So this is my advice for getting more out of AI and just anything in life. Just be curious, right? You got to be curious. You got to ask questions. If you don't try, you'll never know. And there's always a way, regardless of what your comfort level is, what your beliefs are, whether you're a person that posts everything on Facebook or nothing on Facebook, be curious. Find what works for you, but don't find nothing.
All right, I like it. Awesome. Matt, Collin, thanks again for joining me today and talking about the cool new stuff at Point of Rental.